Good afternoon, I'm TerryTopCat for Clusterview.com, TerryTopCat Purrsents, and I'm in the wonderful Kervin Marc boutique, 189 Westbourne Grove, with the fabulous Kervin Marc. How you doing? Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Terry. Nice that you've pronounced my name a bit Kevinish, yeah. But if you get all West Indian on it, it's Kervin, yeah. But that's cool.
We were talking about that before. I was like saying,
Yeah,
you're
right.
born in St Lucia.
I'm born in St Lucia, yeah.
So
yeah.
Kervin, I was saying, is quite an unusual name.
Yeah, I mean, in the Caribbean, we like to do unusual, but my name really is Kervin, whereas some people, you go to their funeral in the Caribbean and they're called Bobsy or something, and then you find out that their name is Eustace.
Yeah, I like that. Eustace
So my name
name.
is Kervin. I mean, I've only ever met other Kervins from St. Lucia, but I'm sure people viewing this now would probably know other Kervins in America or all over the place, but I'm the only one that I know in the UK, actually, yeah, so that's me. I think my mum wanted me to be individual, that's why she gave me that
And
name.
you certainly are, especially we're going to talk about your fabulous clothes and you as a designer. So you were born in St. Lucia, so when did you come over to the UK?
So I came over to the UK in 1984, so I've been here for a long time, yeah.
And you studied at Central St. Martin?
I did, yeah. I studied at Central St. Martin's. I mean, I grew up in Shepherd's Bush in West London. It was always a dream to, I've got like a dual life because I was a sportsman.
So you were a cricketer?
Yeah,
right? Professional cricketer?
I was a professional cricketer. I played for Middlesex. But I was, it's basically at school, it was sport and art. Yeah, that's been my life all the way through from my earliest memory. It's either I'm drawing something or I'm running around playing a sport. Yeah.
So as a sportsman, you must have been at a young age to be very disciplined. So you probably couldn't party as much as all your friends and hanging out, or.
Yeah, I mean that's me. I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, where I'm a bit nerdy, right?
Okay.
That way. I don't think all sportsmen are like that. There's probably I'm guessing a high percentage of sportsmen who are a bit nerdy, they practice, they're not out and about, they're not on the streets. It's that story of not being out on the street and getting distracted. So I'm like that. But I am from the Caribbean, right? And I have seen, and I played cricket, and although I was extremely intense about how I practiced and got to do what I do, but that's not always the Caribbean calypso. Well, the old-fashioned Caribbean calypso way. There's a much more of a joy to playing sport and everything, music and everything. So I don't think I was as joyous about doing it. I enjoyed playing when I played,
sure.
But this kind of very intense practicing and that I've met my Caribbean counterparts who are extremely good and worked really hard, but they played hard all round.
Fair enough, but it teaches you good discipline as well.
Very much so, yeah. Going back to your point, yeah. So discipline, and I see a lot of similarities in art and design. That whole discipline, I've had to be very disciplined, yeah.
So coming on to art and design, so when you were studying, who artists were you like? Were you really? Because I see a lot of African art, and I can particularly see the wonderful Grace Jones. But when you're studying, who were your contemporaries, or who you really looked up to, or what kind of style? I can see one kind of style.
Yeah. I think when in Shepherd's Bush, my route going from Shepherd's Bush to West London was to go through, say, Hyde Park, next to Royal College of Art, and being a boy from the bush, then walking past the Royal College of Art, you're seeing like exhibitions, and then also going to the Serpentine. So I suppose, one of the major artists that I saw at the Serpentine, I remember I saw Jean-Michel Basquiat's work,
Funny you should say that, I was about to mention him, I can see you saying
it's a dangerous thing, as a black artist, I'm very, very aware of people then placing you in that Jean-Michel Basquiat typecast. I liked, his whole way, and actually there's a lot. I mean, he's from New York, I'm from London, big cities, very important cultural cities in the world. He's, from Haitian parentage. I'm from St. Lucian parentage. We have a Creole sort of link, but I know I'm drawing myself, closer to him. But in a way, I want to distance myself from. But to go back to your point, your question, I suppose I did see Jean-Michel Basquiat's work, at the Serpentine when Madonna put it on, helped put it on, and I also saw Christopher's work when I was at art college, and then obviously my school, I went to a good school good Catholic school, London Oratory, and the school church is actually in sort of South Knightsbridge, next to the V&A. So I'd go to the V&A a lot, and just look at just art. So I can't say it's easy for me to say Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Sure.
But I really looked at everybody and everything. When you're formulating, I'm looking at that. And I didn't also have many reference points because I'm not that type of artist who comes from like a classical art background, with a middle class family, and so I'm not saying that only people from that background research artists like that, but So okay, he's the answer is Jean-Michel Basquiat,
who I love because I went and saw it. Was it at the South Bank, or they had one big exhibition after the one at the Serpentine? And what I loved about it is like you'd see everything that he was influenced by and all the references, so you could see what he drew his inspirations from. So obviously, when you see him, then you obviously take lots of things as well. So when you obviously you were into art and design, so when did start designing clothes come in? The same period?
Okay, so just to go back, I know we've moved on from that, who influenced you, but I went to a school in Shepherd Bush, right, primary school called Miles Coverdale, okay, and we had a teacher called Mr. Nelson, right, and he's from Yorkshire. He encouraged my cricket, but he also encouraged my art. He was a musician himself,
fantastic.
And then he had connections and whatnot. So I got to meet the head of art at the school I'd eventually go to, Mr. Gifford at London Oratory. Do you know what? Both those guys, they were influential in my art development. I'll tell you the one story about Mr. Nelson in a minute, but I'll go to Mr. Gifford. I'll skip. He came back from Japan, and he was like really into Japanese art. That sort of flat, pagodas and sort of clouds and all of that. He was, so when I was a first year at school, there was a lot of that sort of influence of sort of Japanese art actually. When I was about 11, just after his trip coming back from Japan. So looking at my work now, actually, I can see, lots of this kind of like horizontals and verticals, which we spoke about when I was 11, then as well. But then obviously being black, then you're drawn to some people who look like you maybe, because it's very difficult when you're growing up to find representation in the arts. So that's why I say Jean-Michel Basquiat, he wasn't as big then when I was growing up, say 86 or something, to us, because they kept on telling us about Warhol and Picasso and so on and so forth, right? But then, so then I found some more people later on who kind of I identified with. So I did a project, sort of a leaving project for the Commonwealth Institute, which I don't think is there anymore in South Kensington.
Yeah, something else.
Where we had to do sort of carnival costumes, and I missed the Caribbean so much. I missed St. Lucia so much that I created, the other kids, they, in my class, they did beautiful work, but I created this massive giant lobster, out of cardboard and and papier-mâché and sculpted it. It's huge, right? And I actually made the local Shepherd Bush Gazette, which was massive. You know, that was like my first publicity.
How old were you?
I was 10 going on 11.
Wow.
Yeah, and and that was my first. I made that costume, and they saw it worthy enough to make the paper. So I was very proud of that, because I knew a lot about lobsters, because I used to live near the sea in the Caribbean, in St. Lucia. So and I that opportunity to express something I know about, in 3D, it was just a joy. Yeah. So
how did your mum feel? Did she like the lobster?
She. You know what? She's got the clip in somewhere.
Okay.
The lobster is since been destroyed. Possibly, it's probably decayed. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Mum's keeping it somewhere without telling me. But I haven't seen it in.
And that ignited your passion to experiment in designing clothes.
Yeah. I would. That's my earliest recollection. So, actually, to be fair, I have family in the Caribbean who helped me learn how to draw. I have a very dear uncle who taught me how to draw, and actually my grandmother was a seamstress, and all my aunties in there was seamstresses. So, so I come from, I suppose, a family of like farmers and seamstresses and so on. So it's there. But I think that's probably common for a lot of Caribbean people from Caribbean descent. Yeah. So so I suppose that's probably where it's coming from, a combination of things. But my first major piece was that massive lobster, 1011.
So we're going to come on to some of the clothes that you actually design now. So we're going to stop for a second, and I want you to get a piece, and then you can describe it to me and tell me about the detail that goes into it and what materials you use. So choose your favourite piece, or maybe two, one leather and something else.
Favourite?
Well, not favourite, but the ones that you sell them.
I get you. They're like my children.
Yeah, of course they
right?
are. Yeah.
So I love them all. Right? Okay. I can find you something at the minute. Right? So I don't know if you can see that, right? So this is from the latest collection that I've just done. I just showed in Milan. I had a show in Milan, and I did this collection on tribalism, right? And now, going back to that whole Jean-Michel Basquiat, because you can be typecast as a black artist, right? So I thought I'd talk about tribalism in a very almost like European way, right, and Japanese way, and because about cultural appropriation, and as a black person, there's so much like you go out in fashion and you see people. Well, now high fashion may as well be black fashion, really, because from all the streetwear influence, hip hop influence, and so on. But I even in that, I don't want to be typecast. In that genre, so I'm probably saying all the wrong things here for potential people who want to make me a creative director for a big, massive brand, like
in time.
Anyway, because I don't sit in that, and I comfortably don't sit in that sort of typecast of type of designer. So this is a Japanese kimono, right, with tribal. Scottish, actually Yorkshire tweed, Scottish, tartan in there as well, there's even Donegal tweed in there as well. But then but that's tribal, isn't it? And then you've got the kimono, which is obviously from Japanese references. So I like mixing these things, and then. Like with a kimono, you don't normally have pockets in there, but I put pockets in there with leather details.
That's great.
Then but I also mix that with military salvage tents
so you use
and
a
so
lot
on.
of that.
Yeah, in there, and it's and wool. So
So how long will it take you to actually draw this, to actually to make it?
Yeah, so it varies actually.
Sure.
Like this, you know, I got to dream it, then draw it.
Where do you get? So how does it suddenly come to you? You'll be asleep or somewhere? Because like with
it can come at any time.
Anytime.
But one of
do
the
you write
things
them
about
down,
it's like one of the things about being one of the things about calling yourself a designer or an artist, right, is you know, like I suppose everyday people, they don't have to rely on making a living, say, out of creating things, right? So when you are a professional, say, musician or artist, you have to have a process, I believe, in order to do it. That's it. So I studied design at art college, and so then there's a design process. So basically, I sit there, and there's ways where I channel, you know. So I know I'm doing tribalism. It's like, okay, let's try not to do it as predictably as you know, people might expect, and then I start drawing, and then I do a series of sketches, and then I might twirl it up, sometimes a bit quite rough, and then I'll you know, sit with my machinist and then get it more perfect, really.
And do you have anyone, let's say your wife or your kids, or you know, say, look, what do you think of this design? Or do you have anyone other than your family or friend or another creative?
I mean,
or you go with your instinct?
I go with my instinct.
Right.
I do have my two kids. You know, my son is 14 and my daughter who's 11 is going to be 12 very soon. My wife. You know, so I run it past you know, a number of people. My kids are creative. My daughter looks like she's veering more in this direction, but you never know. My son's very sporty and very arty as well. So you know, this is the thing. But my daughter, she's it's interesting to see them creatively express themselves, right? And the important thing is they're them and I'm me. You know? And that's going to be, you know, a major thing in their futures. Wherever they go, it's going to be their choice. Yeah.
How cool. Yeah. So can you show me something out of leather? Because you've got so many beautiful accessories so
then, so there's, I'll get you this, right? Okay, it's in black, but then I also do it in red.
So you do
well.
it for men and women. Let's say.
Yeah. Well, actually, my work is very unisex.
Right.
So you know, so this is a skirt, yeah, right, which then turns into a cape. Right, your arms come out the side.
Oh wow!
Right? Okay, right. Or it can turn into a dress, you know, a dress as well. But your arms will come out the side. So yeah, and then you know, drawstrings around the waist. Okay, it's mainly women who buy this for me, but it's no reason why men can't wear this as well, especially in this sort of gender neutral time that we're in. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so there you go. Right. So that's another piece out of leather. Actually, I got into leather when I had an agent in Milan many years ago. That's because I used to actually I started off by making T-shirts, right, art T-shirts. Well, that's how we met.
That's how.
So
yeah. You also got a stall in Spitalfields Market.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm at, I had been at Spitalfields for, you know, maybe about 16 years. And I would be there from Wednesday to Sunday for that time. Yeah. So, and I started off with T-shirts because I had the agent in Milan was also my distributor, and I just needed to clear some T-shirts. I got a bit fed up of wholesaling actually, because there's a whole process if you're self-financed of waiting for payment, you know, for collections and so on and so forth, and that's a hard slog. I found it hard. I had massive initial success as a small artist, you know, sort of hand-done T-shirts, art T-shirts, and then I thought, okay, let me just try and clear some stuff at the market. I started at Greenwich initially, and then went on to Spitalfields, and I kind of got addicted to the instant feedback
Yes, it
and
is instant.
instant
That's right,
feedback,
yeah.
and also people paying you directly for the work. But I've always imagined. My English teacher at school used to say, a willing suspension of disbelief. Every time I stood on my stall, I believed I was at the best boutique in the world. Yeah, right. So I curated it like a boutique stroke gallery. And, you know, I'm saying that now on camera to you, but that's genuinely how I did it. It was an installation with high art, what I consider the high art. And then I got a lot of people or customers.
Regular customers,
yeah,
repeating customers.
Exactly, because there'd be like a shock of, oh, how comes this is here at the market? And then... Yeah,
because I came with Mitchell and he bought the Grace Jones T-shirt, and then we had a conversation about how much we both love Grace Jones, and we've had some nice experiences with her. And then obviously you've painted a few.
Yeah,
and she's obviously a big inspiration as well.
Yeah, she is. And going back to the whole Jean-Michel Basquiat coming from the Caribbean, a lot of people don't actually realise that she's actually from the Caribbean. She's from Jamaica.
She's actually born in America. When I interviewed Noel, he's like, you know, we were all born in America except for Chris, and I'm like, gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like the Queen of Jamaica. I mean,
she's if you ask her what she is,
yeah, she'll say Jamaican.
She's Jamaican,
of course.
Right? You know, so Grace, I didn't know her. But what she represented was a bit of an outsider for me. I liked that growing up, and but the very important thing about her is that, you know, coming from the Caribbean, there's a whole skin and, you know, shadism, right, amongst black people. This is like
I've had this conversation with Mark Anthony. Yes.
Yeah, so this is a legacy of colonialism and the slave trade, right? So to represent a Jamaican woman, a dark-skinned Jamaican woman, and consider her beautiful, right? This was revolutionary. So I don't know. I mean, you know, her music with Sly and Robbie, I suppose, that then elevated her to be this musician, right? But she was a model as well. She was a dancer first at Studio 54, and then a model, and then musician, sort of in and about the same time, I suppose. But then to be seen as beautiful, like if you'd asked a lot of Caribbean people back in the day, they wouldn't have necessarily. I think stereotypical Caribbean people who were perhaps not into reggae music and Marcus Garveyism or just a conscious level of consciousness, they would have not necessarily agreed that she was the most beautiful. But I found it very important that representation. I mean, you know, we're beautiful whatever shade we're in,
Absolutely.
Right? But that was not always the story. If you're dark skinned, you wasn't considered that. However, in Paris, they kind of exoticized this kind of dark skinned woman. Although she was a dark skinned Josephine Baker anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so I found her fascinating. I found this beautiful black woman fascinating.
How long have you had this shop? So in 189 West, this is Kervin Marc Boutique, 189 Westbourne Grove. Tell everyone the days you're open and how long you've been here.
Yeah, so we've been here just under 3 years. I was initially sharing the store with a company called Four Store. They do you know, terrariums, bonsais in glass jars. And then I took over fully a year ago, to then house more of my artwork. Forced to have gone to their main place in Bethnal Green Road. So it's been here fully with my artwork and my clothing for exactly a year. But I've been in this space showing the work for the last just under 3 years. Yeah.
Also, got a mutual friend. I'll say hi to Omar Okai. So I was talking about you, and he goes, "Oh, I know Kervin," and I was telling him about clothes into theatre. So you do also design like for film sets. I believe you worked with Halle Berry and also the theatre. So how's that different from, that's a whole different world that you're catering to.
So I do a little bit of theatre right now. I do some of the costume for Tina.
Great.
Some of the leather pieces. So that's Tina all in London, in Hamburg, in Stuttgart, in Barcelona, and all over, right? So because that show's doing really well. So I haven't really made that much noise about it, but I suppose I'm telling you now.
Great.
That's been a few years now, quite a few years now. And with the celebrity type things, so I get celebrities who come into the shop. I'm often there. I have people work for me now because I'm a lot busier now, and they seem to enjoy the experience. And I think, as an artist, I suppose I've got to learn how to name drop people. I mean, we were just speaking about Grace, but she's an art piece herself, right?
Certainly is.
But the other people who I've been blessed with, I mean, Halle Berry, she has come in, and she's a very good. She spread the word a bit about me, and I really appreciate that. I have a lot of respect for her, and I mean, I don't want to jump on too much on that.
Sure.
But I like to treat my
everyone is the same.
And also just a little bit of decorum and who they are and so forth. So respectfully, everybody that comes in,
Of course. Like Nasika's my friend, and we went to see Skunk and Nancy, and I was like, oh, well, I recognise that coat, and she had this amazing coat that you designed.
Yeah,
as well.
so she's a good example of, like, when she came in, I treat her. My aim was to treat her like a superstar, right? And all my people that come in, that's what I do. So you can probably tell I'm a bit nervous about talking about big celebrities that come in, although I treat them nicely, but I treat like everybody that comes in, because I think we're all individual and we're all special, right? And especially if I show respect to people when they come in, and then if they show me, equal respect, they don't actually have to like my work, but I think it's just all about that respect. And if I'm going to dress them or make pieces for them, right, it's a joyous thing for me, and then I think they get a very joyful experience themselves, and that's really what I thrive on. Yeah.
So also one last thing. We'll come on to the social media bits where everyone can find you. So you also just came back from Paris and Milan fashion show. So how different is that when you doing? Obviously, it's very stressful getting the collection together. So what's the expectations? Is there no expectations? And how long have you been doing the Milan and Paris fashion weeks for?
So I've not done a major fashion runway show, but I have done showrooms, during Fashion Week. So, for those who understand fashion, then you're doing a showroom during Fashion Week, and you're selling your collection to shops. Okay, so it's different in that you're selling to shops, but you still need to explain the collection to the buyers who need to be treated very specially as well, almost like, so you give them a slice of what it's like to come into the shop, or what it was like to come in onto my stall, so that they get an idea of the collection. So that's what Paris. Milan. I was in Milan most of the time. I did the full. Paris Milan Fashion Week, and then I did a short stint in Paris. But I've been going back and forth to Paris for many years, actually, and presenting to the odd shop here and then, the odd Japanese store, because my work is perhaps a little bit more niche, and what I consider special. So it's those types of buyers who are interested for their stores. So I've had a break. I had a break, as I said to you early in the interview, that from that, but I'm back now, just looking to sell to just a few of the best stores. Yeah, what I consider best sort of stores that can carry an artisanal brand like myself. Yeah.
And where can everyone find you on social media?
Socials, right? So it's at Kervin Marc, and that's Kevin with an R, Kervin, and Marc with a C, right? At Kervin Marc on Instagram, or at Kervin www.kervinmarc.com. Those two, you'll find me. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was such a great interview. I really learned a lot more about you. TerryTopCat, TerryTopCat presents for Clusterview.com. Designer, artist Kervin Marc. Thank you, Kervin, for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.